Murder's lousy too, Mr. Field. Something very sinister is going on here.
She solved over 260 murders, never got a speeding ticket, never missed a deadline, and somehow, nobody in Cabot Cove ever thought to ask why every person she knew kept ending up dead. Murder, she wrote, looked like cozy Sunday night television, a sweet widow, a typewriter, and a cup of tea. But pull back the curtain, and what you find isn't cozy at all. Contract wars, stolen credit, a town with a murder rate higher than Detroit, and one leading lady who fought the network tooth and nail just to keep her show alive. These are 20 dark facts about murder, she wrote. And the bonus, the spin-off they tried to launch that crashed so hard, even Jessica Fletcher couldn't solve it.
Well, it's just that there's something I can't quite put my finger on that's not.
Hi, my name is Jerry, and this is Film Noir. Number 1. Before Angela Lansbury ever sat down at that typewriter, the role of Jessica Fletcher almost went to someone else entirely. 3 someone elses, actually. The network's first choice was John Stapleton, fresh off her legendary run as Edith Bunker on All in the Family. She passed. Then they went to Doris Day, who was living quietly in California, surrounded by dogs and cats, and absolutely zero interest in returning to Hollywood. She said no without even finishing the pitch. Then came Angela Lansbury, who had been primarily a Broadway star for years, and hadn't carried a major American television series before. CBS wasn't confident. They pushed back. They wanted a bigger name, a more familiar face, someone safer. Lansbury wanted the role badly, but she had conditions. She wasn't moving to Los Angeles full-time, and she wanted creative input from day one. The network grumbled, her agents negotiated, and after weeks of back and forth, CBS finally blinked. What they got was one of the most iconic television performances in history. What they almost got was a completely different show that probably would have been canceled by season 2 and forgotten entirely.
Plain. Unless, of course, that is now out of the question.
Number 2. Here's something the opening credits never told you. Jessica Fletcher didn't actually create herself. The character of the mystery-writing widow from Cabot Cove was directly inspired by Agatha Christie's Miss Marple, a sharp elderly amateur sleuth who solved crimes while everyone underestimated her. The creators, Richard Levinson and William Link, have been open about the debt they owed to Christie's creation. But what fewer people know is just how close the show came to actually being a Miss Marple adaptation. In the early development stages, Levinson and Link explored the possibility of licensing the character outright. Christie's estate was approached, talks happened, and then they stalled, reportedly over creative control, and the insistence that the stories remain faithful to Christie's original plots, rather than being reinvented week by week for American network television. So Levinson and Link did what any resourceful writer does when the door closes. They opened a window. They took the soul of Miss Marple, dropped her in coastal Maine, gave her a name, a typewriter, and a dead husband, and called her Jessica Fletcher. Christie's estate was reportedly not thrilled, but legally there was nothing to be done. The inspiration was obvious, the copyright was clear, and the show ran for 12 seasons without paying a penny to the Christie estate.
Where is the body?
Number 3. Cabot Cove. Maine is one of the most charming fictional towns in television history. White picket fences, lobster rolls, autumn leaves, friendly neighbors. It is also, statistically speaking, the most dangerous place in the history of human civilization. Researchers have actually done the math on this, and the numbers are genuinely horrifying. Over the course of the series, approximately 300 murders took place in or around Cabot Cove, which had a stated population of roughly 3,000 people. That works out to a murder rate of around 150 per thousand residents per year. For comparison, the highest recorded murder rate of any real city in modern history hovers around 100 per 100,000.
Well, Mr. McCallum, suppose you tell us who the corpse was in the pool and how come he was wearing your costume.
Cabot Cove would make Caracas look like a retirement community. And here's the darkest part. Jessica Fletcher knew almost every single victim. She also knew almost every single killer. At some point during the run of the show, a fan theory emerged that Jessica herself was the killer, methodically eliminating enemies and then framing innocent people with her razor-sharp investigative mind. The producers laughed it off, but nobody ever entirely disproved it either. Sleep on that tonight.
Then I suppose it was an opportunity for him.
In this town, Mrs. Fletcher, we have two kinds of people.
Number 4. Angela Lansbury was not a passive participant in this show. She was the engine. From the very first season, she pushed for creative control in ways that made the network deeply uncomfortable. She demanded script approval. She insisted on having a say in casting. She fought for storylines that gave Jessica Fletcher actual depth, rather than just a new body to stumble over each week. But the fight that nearly ended the show before it truly began came at the end of season 3. Lansbury was exhausted. The filming schedule was brutal, approximately 22 episodes per season, with production running almost year-round. She went to CBS and told them plainly that she couldn't continue at that pace. She wanted a reduced episode order and a more humane shooting schedule. The network said no. She said she'd walk. They said she was bluffing. She was not bluffing. What followed was one of the most tense contract standoffs in network television history, with Lansbury holding every card because without her, there was literally no show. CBS eventually agreed to shorten the seasons and restructure the schedule. Lansbury won. The show continued, but the relationship between star and network was never entirely warm again.
Trained investigator. Even my fictional heroes,
Number 5. For the first several seasons, significant portions of Murder, She Wrote, were filmed in a small coastal town called Mendocino in Northern California, standing in for the fictional Cabot Cove, Maine. The residents of Mendocino had a complicated relationship with the production. On one hand, the show brought tourism and economic activity to a quiet community. On the other hand, it brought camera crews, closed streets, traffic, and a level of disruption that a town of roughly 1,000 people was not exactly built to absorb. Local businesses were repeatedly asked to change their signage, repaint storefronts, or close during filming. One local tavern owner reportedly refused every single time, which is why sharp-eyed viewers will occasionally spot an unmistakably California-looking bar lurking in the background of what is supposed to be rural Maine. Over time, as the show's budget expanded and location shooting became more elaborate, less filming happened in Mendocino. The town eventually leaned into its connection with the series, marketing itself as the real Cabot Cove for tourists. So, the place that was mildly annoyed by the show ended up making money off it for decades. Funny how that works. Number 6. Here's the one that should bother you more than it probably does. Murder, She Wrote launched in 1984 and ran until 1996. 12 seasons, 264 episodes. And across that entire run, Angela Lansbury, the star, the creative force, the reason the show existed at all, was never once nominated for an Emmy Award in the Outstanding Lead Actress in a Drama Series category. She won the Golden Globe 4 times. She received a special honorary Emmy in 2013, nearly 2 decades after the show ended. But competitive Emmy nominations for her actual performance? 0. The Television Academy nominated plenty of things around her. The show itself received nominations. Guest stars picked up nods. But Lansbury? Nothing. The prevailing theory among television historians is straightforward and ugly. The Academy didn't take the show seriously because it was a gentle mystery, watched predominantly by older women. It wasn't prestige, it wasn't dark or difficult or drenched in critical conversation. It was just enormously popular and beloved and anchored by one of the finest performers in the history of the medium. The Emmy voters just couldn't bring themselves to care. Honestly, I'm still annoyed about this one. Number 7. Tom Bosley, who played Sheriff Amos Tupper in the early seasons, was beloved by audiences and warmly regarded by the cast. His departure from the show after season 4 was publicly framed as a mutual decision, a natural transition point for the character. The real story is considerably less tidy. Behind the scenes, there were growing tensions between the production and Bosley over his role's diminishing importance in the plots. As Jessica Fletcher became increasingly central to every mystery, the local sheriff was being written as more of a bumbling afterthought, someone to be gently corrected by Jessica before she swept in and solved everything herself. Bosley reportedly found this frustrating. He hadn't signed on to play a punchline. He was a respected actor with real credits, and he wanted scenes with weight. The conversations between his representatives and the production reportedly became strained. Eventually, a quiet exit was negotiated. The character was written out, and a new sheriff, played by Ron Masak, was brought in. Masak played the role as someone who was slightly less bothered by being shown up by a mystery novelist every week, which made everyone's life considerably easier. Bosley remained gracious about the show in interviews for the rest of his life. That kind of professionalism deserves acknowledgement. Number 8. The show made Angela Lansbury extraordinarily wealthy and famous all over again, after a long career that already included 3 Oscar nominations and a string of Broadway triumphs. But there was a cost that almost nobody talked about publicly. During the peak years of production, Lansbury was essentially living 2 separate lives. Her family had relocated to Ireland years earlier, partly to remove her son from a troubling social environment in Los Angeles. She has spoken in interviews about his early involvement with the Manson family's circle, which is a sentence that still stops people cold when they hear it for the first time. Yes, that Manson family. While the show filmed, Lansbury would travel back and forth between productions and her family in Cork. The toll was significant. She has described the years of peak murder she wrote as both the most professionally fulfilling and personally exhausting of her life. She was holding a television empire together with sheer force of will, while simultaneously managing the demands of a family that had been through genuine trauma. The warmth she projected every Sunday night as Jessica Fletcher was real. But it was also armor, and behind it, things were considerably harder than they looked. Sasdolin. Number 9. By the late 1980s, Murder, She Wrote was pulling in between 20 and 30 million viewers per week, which in the pre-streaming, pre-cable fragmentation television landscape meant it was one of the most watched programs on American television. CBS knew what they had, but they also had a problem. The network was under pressure to attract younger demographics, and Murder, She Wrote was beloved by an audience that advertisers had decided, with breathtaking arrogance, didn't matter. The show's core viewers were older women, and certain advertisers refused to pay premium rates for that audience regardless of how enormous it was. So, in 1995, CBS made one of the most catastrophically stupid decisions in television history. They moved the show from its longtime Sunday night slot, where it had dominated for over a decade, to Thursday night, directly opposite NBC's powerhouse lineup. The ratings collapsed almost immediately, not because the show was worse, not because Angela Lansbury had lost anything, but because loyal older viewers had built a decade-long Sunday night ritual, and Thursday was simply not Sunday. The show was canceled the following year. CBS executives later admitted the move was a mistake. That admission came too late to matter, which seems about right for a network decision made on those grounds. Number 10. Most people know Angela Lansbury as Jessica Fletcher. Fewer remember that she was also the original voice of Mrs. Potts in Beauty and the Beast, that she starred in The Manchurian Candidate opposite Frank Sinatra, that she received her first Oscar nomination at the age of 19. But what almost nobody knows is just how close she came to walking away from acting entirely in the years before Murder, She Wrote came along. By the early 1980s, Lansbury was in her late 50s. The film roles were drying up. Television hadn't offered her anything worthy of her abilities. Her extraordinary Broadway work in Sweeney Todd had just concluded, and she was genuinely uncertain what came next. She later said in interviews that she had begun to quietly consider whether her time in front of an audience was simply over. Then, the script for Murder, She Wrote arrived. She read it overnight. By morning, she wanted it badly enough to fight for it. The show didn't save her career in any mechanical sense because her career was a monument by that point, but it gave her a second chapter of a scale and reach that almost no actor ever gets once, let alone twice, and she almost missed it entirely. Number 11. The guest cast of Murder, She Wrote reads like someone broke into the Hollywood archives and shook them upside down. Over 12 seasons, the show featured an almost incomprehensible parade of familiar faces. Jerry Orbach, Kim Delaney, Joaquin Phoenix. Before anyone knew who Joaquin Phoenix was, George Clooney in an early appearance that he has since described with the specific energy of someone who would prefer you forget about it. But here is the dark side of that revolving door of talent. Many of those guest spots were taken by actors whose careers had stalled, whose bankability had faded, or who were quietly desperate for a steady paycheck and the visibility that a top-rated show could still provide. Booking Murder She wrote in the late 80s and early 90s carried an unspoken stigma in certain Hollywood circles. It meant you were no longer being offered anything better. Agents would sometimes advise clients against taking the work for exactly that reason, which is a brutal calculation to make about a show watched by 30 million people. The actors who ignored that advice and showed up anyway consistently gave some of the sharpest performances of their later careers. Sometimes the work that saves you professionally is the work someone told you was beneath you.
Go to our murderer.
Number 12. The town of Cabot Cove had a doctor named Seth Hazlitt, played by William Wyndham, who appeared throughout the series as Jessica's closest friend and the community's beloved general practitioner. He was warm, grumpy in an endearing way, and utterly trustworthy. Here is what the show never dwelled on. Seth Hazlitt was the town doctor in a community experiencing the highest per capita murder rate in recorded human history, and he appeared perfectly untroubled by this fact across hundreds of episodes. He never seemed to be suffering from post-traumatic stress. He never suggested that perhaps Cabot Cove had a serious public safety problem that warranted intervention from state or federal authorities. He just kept showing up at crime scenes, confirming time of death, and then going home for supper. What this says about Seth Hazlitt's psychological state is a question the writers apparently had no interest in exploring, but William Wyndham played him with such genuine warmth and dry wit that audiences never stopped to ask it either. That is the quiet genius of the show's tonal control. It kept you laughing and comfortable just firmly enough that the underlying existential horror of the premise never quite broke through, most of the time.
Right.
Number 13. Here is a fact that the production company would have preferred to keep quiet. In the later seasons of Murder, she wrote, as the filming schedule compressed and the budget was managed with increasing tightness, a growing number of scenes were shot without Angela Lansbury present on set at all. A stand-in would be filmed from behind or shot from angles that concealed the face, while other cast members performed their dialogue to an empty mark. Lansbury would then record her responses separately, and the scenes were cut together in editing. This practice, not unusual in television production under pressure, was kept deliberately low profile because Lansbury's physical presence was so central to the show's identity that any suggestion she wasn't fully inhabiting every frame felt like a betrayal of the audience's trust. Crew members who worked on those later seasons have described it in interviews as strange and slightly melancholy. Shooting scenes opposite a body double while the actual star was somewhere else entirely. The editing was seamless enough that most viewers never noticed, but on set, everyone noticed. It was one of the quieter signs that the production was running on fumes toward the end.
It sounds catty, I'm sorry.
Well, you did mention there was no love lost between you.
That's putting it mildly.
Number 14. When Murder, She Wrote finally ended its network run in 1996, it didn't go quietly. CBS and Universal Television attempted to extend the franchise through a series of television movies, 4 of which aired between 1997 and 2003. Angela Lansbury returned for all of them, and they performed respectably in the ratings. But what the public didn't see was the increasingly difficult negotiation behind each one. By this point, Lansbury had complete creative authority as a condition of her participation, which meant scripts were rewritten, directors were approved or rejected, and the budget of each film was subject to her input. Universal found this arrangement exhausting. Lansbury found Universal's cost-cutting instincts equally exhausting. The 4th television movie, A Murder, She Wrote, The Last Free Man, aired in 2003 and performed well enough that another installment seemed likely. It never came. The official explanation was scheduling. The less official explanation, pieced together from interviews and industry reporting over the years, was that both sides had simply run out of patience with each other. After nearly 2 decades, the partnership ended not with a dramatic confrontation, but with a phone call that just never got returned. That is honestly a very Jessica Fletcher kind of ending. Number 15. One of the most persistent and uncomfortable conversations around Murder, She Wrote concerns race. For a show that ran 12 seasons and featured hundreds of guest characters across dozens of locations, the world of Cabot Cove and beyond was strikingly, almost aggressively white. Black guest characters appeared periodically throughout the run, but rarely as central figures in the mystery plots. They were more often supporting roles, witnesses, or background presence. Hispanic characters were similarly marginal. The show's writers, almost entirely white themselves throughout the production run, didn't appear to regard this as a problem requiring attention. It was network television in the 1980s, and the genre of cozy mystery had its own deeply embedded demographic assumptions about who the audience was and what world they wanted to see reflected back at them. To be clear, this was industry-wide, not unique to Murder, she wrote, but the show's enormous reach and cultural footprint make the omission more glaring in retrospect. Angela Lansbury, to her credit, has acknowledged in later interviews that the show's lack of diversity was a genuine failing. That acknowledgement doesn't fix anything, but it's worth noting she made it plainly without qualification, which is more than most of the people who made those decisions have managed. Number 16. The spin-off. Oh, the spin-off. In 1996, as Murder, She Wrote was winding down its network run, CBS attempted to launch a companion series called The Law and Harry McGraw, built around Jerry Orbach's recurring character from several Murder, She Wrote episodes. Orbach was charming, the character had genuine appeal, and the network believed they had a workable franchise extension on their hands. The show lasted one season, 18 episodes, respectable enough for views, and then cancellation. But that wasn't the spin-off that truly crashed. That distinction belongs to a later attempt in 2005 when CBS developed a full reboot of Murder, She Wrote entirely, recasting the role of Jessica Fletcher with an African-American lead, a choice that, had it been executed well, might have actually addressed the diversity failures of the original. The reboot was announced, a pilot was ordered, and then the combination of audience resistance, network cold feet, and Angela Lansbury publicly expressing her displeasure at the recasting killed it before a single frame was shot. The instinct to revisit the franchise was understandable. The execution of that attempt was, not to put too fine a point on it, a complete disaster from start to finish. Number 17.
Oh, I see. You were forcing your traitor to act quickly.
Angela Lansbury turned down an enormous amount of money to return to Murder. She wrote in that 2005 reboot as a supporting character or mentor figure alongside the new lead. The figure reportedly offered was in the range of several $millions per episode. She said no. Her reasoning, which she explained with characteristic directness in a subsequent interview, was simple. Jessica Fletcher was not a supporting character. Jessica Fletcher was the show. Reducing her to a narrative device designed to legitimize a replacement was something she found both professionally insulting and creatively dishonest. She also noted, with a kind of precision that suggested this point had been carefully considered, that if CBS genuinely believed the franchise could carry a new lead, they shouldn't need Angela Lansbury to sell it for them. This was a devastating observation that the network had no good answer to, because she was completely right. The reboot needed her presence to reassure skeptical viewers, which meant it wasn't actually confident in its own premise. Lansbury identified this contradiction immediately, declined politely but firmly, and went back to her life in Ireland. The reboot collapsed without her, exactly as she knew it would. Number 18.
Well, I believe it's about 1:15 midnight.
Throughout the run of Murder, She Wrote, Jessica Fletcher solves every mystery she encounters through a combination of sharp observation, logical deduction, and an apparently supernatural ability to be present at every relevant moment of every investigation. What the show never addressed is the legal dimension of all this amateur detective work. In any realistic jurisdiction, the evidence gathered by an unlicensed civilian wandering through crime scenes, interviewing witnesses, and accessing private information would be inadmissible. The confessions she elicited, often through psychological pressure applied during dramatic confrontations, would be challenged immediately by any competent defense attorney. The killers she exposed would in many cases have walked free within weeks on procedural grounds. Law professors have apparently used Murder, She Wrote episodes as teaching examples of evidence contamination and improper investigative conduct. This is either a scathing indictment of the show's relationship with legal reality, or proof that Jessica Fletcher was operating in a universe where the normal rules simply did not apply to her. Given her murder rate, her social connections, and her apparent immunity from any official scrutiny, the latter hypothesis seems increasingly plausible. Jessica Fletcher was not above the law. She simply existed in a dimension where the law had learned, through painful experience, not to get in her way. Number 19.
What you know, Ethan? I haven't read any of them.
In 1991, at the absolute peak of the show's cultural dominance, a Harvard Lampoon study circulated through television criticism circles naming Murder, She Wrote as one of the most formulaic programs on American television. The critique was specific and not entirely unfair. Episode structure was almost mathematically predictable. A body would appear within the first 10 minutes. Jessica would insert herself into the investigation. A series of false suspects would be introduced and eliminated. The real killer would be revealed in a confrontation during the final act, every time without meaningful variation. What the Harvard Lampoon piece failed to adequately account for, and what more sympathetic critics pointed out in response, was that the formula worked because Lansbury made it work. The structure was the scaffolding. She was the building. Audiences weren't tuning in to be surprised by the format. They were tuning in to watch one specific woman navigate that format with intelligence, warmth, and wit. You could level the same formulaic critique at virtually every procedural drama ever made. The difference was that most of them didn't have Angela Lansbury. The Lampoon piece got a lot of attention. The show got 30 million viewers. History has rendered its verdict fairly clearly. Number 20.
Well, they certainly are an attractive couple.
Charlie can pass
sure they
the
are.
state CPA.
Angela Lansbury was 89 years old when she passed away in October 2022, 5 days before her 90th birthday. The tributes were enormous and immediate and deeply felt, which was appropriate for a career that spanned 8 decades and touched almost every corner of popular culture. But within the Murder, She Wrote community specifically, fans and former cast members described something more intimate than celebrity mourning. For 12 years and 264 episodes, she had been a Sunday night constant in tens of millions of households. She had been company for people who were lonely, comfort for people who were grieving, entertainment for families who watched together across 3 generations. Jessica Fletcher was fictional. The feeling of reliability and warmth that Lansbury brought to that character was entirely real. Several former guest stars described receiving the news and sitting quietly for a long time before they could articulate what they felt. William Link, one of the show's creators, said she had given Jessica Fletcher more humanity than he and his co-writer had ever put on the page. That is the highest compliment a writer can pay a performer. She took what they gave her and made it better than they imagined it could be. Bonus fact. Here is the one that ties everything together in the most Murder, She Wrote way imaginable. For years, a persistent behind-the-scenes story circulated among crew members, writers, and production staff from the show's middle seasons. The story goes like this. Angela Lansbury, during a particularly grueling week of production in which she had worked 6 consecutive 14-hour days, arrived on set one morning to find that an executive producer had requested changes to a script that she had already approved. The changes weakened Jessica's role in the final confrontation, redistributing the key deductive moment to a male police character. Lansbury read the revised pages in silence. Then she set them down, looked at the producer, and said with complete calm that she would not be filming those pages. She said it once. She did not raise her voice. She did not threaten or negotiate. She simply stated it as settled fact and walked to her dressing room. The original pages were restored before lunch. Nobody asked her to explain herself. Nobody pushed back. The crew went back to work. That story, true or embellished by time, captures something essential about what Angela Lansbury actually was on that set. Not just the star, not just the lead. The reason the whole thing existed at all. And she knew it quietly and completely every single day.